everything that uses every computing device that we have has RAM in it. You know, they all have that stuff, and that stuff is getting really, really expensive. And AMD is basically rumored to switch over from they're going to start prioritizing 8 gigabit
Byte.
Somebody
Byte.
save me.
Gigabyte.
Byte. Okay, my brain stopped working there for a second. I really should have two different words for that. They're going to prioritize 8 gigabyte GPUs, and they're going to be raising the price there. Here's like a quick summary. AMD board partners implemented a 5 to 10% GPU price increase in January of 2026, with another hike planned for February and March, and they're going to be prioritizing 8 gigabyte models like the RX 9060 XT. 8 gigabyte due to skyrocketing RAM costs. Production of 16 gigabyte models will be significantly reduced, with prices rising $10 per 8 gigabytes of VRAM to match escalating memory costs driven by AI data center demand. So, okay, first off, it's a rumor. So we don't know if this is true. So anytime we have something that's a rumor, I have two things that I want to think about. Number one, is it true? And number two, if it is true, or let's just assume it's true, what do you think of it? And so I'm going to go first here this time. The way I look at this, it seems like it's a no-brainer. They have to do this, really, because otherwise they're not going to have things to sell to consumers, because they can't get the parts that they need. So I do think that this is probably going to be true. The second part of that, though, what do I think of it, is more complex. And the reason it's more complex, I think, is because the question is this a bad thing? And I don't think that this is necessarily a bad thing, especially for somebody who's interested in the Steam Deck, because if this, or not Steam Deck, Steam Machine, because if the Steam Machine has 8 gigs of VRAM and AMD is going to start shipping hardware that is prioritizing 8 gigs of VRAM, then perhaps we'll see developers optimizing their games for less VRAM. And a perfect example would be Larian Studios, which made Baldur's Gate 3, and they recently announced their next game, which is Divinity. They announced it at the Game Awards, and then shortly after they announced it, the Rampocalypse started, and then they basically said, "Hey, we have to start optimizing sooner than we wanted to, because we know that people are not going to have the hardware that we hoped that they would have when our new game Divinity comes out." So, Rich, do you think it's true? And if it's true, do you think it's a good thing or a bad thing?
I'm not going to lie. I understood none of that. Not what you said, but literally the way it was written in that report. Maybe it's because, like, I'm like the mom on Arrested Development. If you ask me how much like a 9060 XT costs, I'm like, what does a banana cost these days? $10? Like, I don't know what a 9060 XT costs, honestly. And like, but like the way they explained it was like $10 per 8 gigabytes of RAM increase, but also the board maker would have an increase, but also the board partners would increase. I'm a little bit lost, I'll be honest.
Okay. Do you think that it's possible that they would raise the prices and focus on 8 gigabytes of VRAM? Like, that's the
focus
question.
on selling 8 gig, like, yes. Have that be the. Yeah, I think so. I mean, but that's similar to like NVIDIA, like, oh, we're just going to give you 50 series cards again. Right. I think they're going to sell you less for more money. Yeah, most likely. Right. And is that like a good thing? I mean, net gain, net loss, I think this is overall a bad thing, but nonetheless, I as I have always been, like, going to focus on smaller games, worse graphics, etc. And that'll be the way I cope. And I have apparently 1,200 days worth of those games already. So I'll just keep buying those.
Gary, do you believe the rumor? And is the rumor a bad thing or a good thing?
I do believe the rumor generally. I don't think it's a good thing. I don't. I think it's trying to make lemonade at. Not that the 96. Not that these cards are lemons. That they're not. It's just that the situation is lemons, and they have to make lemonade out of the situation rather than the product. So, you go back to what Gabe said about the Steam Deck, that they were surprised that people were buying the more expensive version than the cheaper version. I think when it comes down to is when, regardless of whatever it is, people are going to deal in the situation that they are, and they just want to get something that is going to be better for them going into the future. They don't want to be, generally, they don't want to be getting something that is only going to last them a short period of time. They have, especially with technology, you often hear the word future-proof thrown around, and people do care about that. So they try to set themselves up as best as they possibly can, even if they're only going to have it for a year, right? Like, yeah, actually, I'm done using it. I'm going to sell it. But then they think to themselves, wait, I have the best version, so it's going to be better, easier to sell, and I'll be able to, you know what I mean? So there's lots of reasons why they always do it. So I think it's just, they're not doing it because they're like, oh, we need to make it cheaper. I think they're doing it because the allotment of RAM that they have, if they use 16 gigs, the amount of units that they can get is less.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like kind of like that situation.
Yeah.
That's how I ultimately perceive it when they're talking to these companies, and that's just basically making lemonade out of the situation.
Yeah. Russ, do you believe it? And if you do believe it, or just assume that it's true, do you think it's good for game optimization if the main hardware makers are shipping less powerful hardware?
Yeah, so I looked it up because I don't know prices for AMD graphics card either. And so a 9060 XT, 8 gigs is around $350 on Best Buy right now. And then a 16 gig is $450 on Best Buy. So those are not bad prices. I don't know how good these graphics cards are, like the equivalent on the NVIDIA side, but I don't know, those are pretty decent prices if you look at it. And those are all in stock right now. I could go and pick them up, which is kind of crazy. So the way I see it, yeah, this is probably right. I mean, there's a RAM shortage, and so because of the RAM shortage, they're probably going to have to adjust prices. And, you know, if they can ship twice as many 8 gigabyte models as 16 gigabyte models, that might be a win for them, right? And I think that for game optimization, it's actually a good thing. So there's a quote I was looking up while you guys were talking about it, and it's from Orson Welles: "The enemy of art is the absence of limitations." And I feel like that's exactly where we are, right? Where it's like, just throw some bigger numbers at it, just, you know, throw more things at it, and it's going to be better art. But I think that doing more with less is always better. When I was at CES last month, I went to an MSI press briefing thing that they did, right? And they were talking about this new GPU, and it was like super high-end, like limited edition 2000 numbered GPUs or whatever. I don't remember which, 5090 something or other. But they kept talking about how it can go up to 1,000 watts and like how this was a good thing. And I'm just thinking, like, why do I need 1,000 watts in my GPU ever, you know? But that was the thing. It's like, this thing goes to 1,000 watts, you know? And like, this is the opposite of the whole, you know, the quote that I just said, right? And that's what I want to see. I want to see people doing more with less. I got an email just yesterday from a company that makes microfiber cloths, and they're like, hey, we're going to send you a package to review. And in that email they said, this is the year where you're going to be talking more about doing stuff with the stuff you already have than buying new stuff. So this is why you need my thing, you know? And I was like, it's actually pretty poignant, you know what I mean? And that's kind of what I'm thinking with 2026 as well. Is like, sure, let's see what we can do with the 8 gigabyte model as opposed to the 16 gigabyte model. So I like all of that. I think it's a good thing for gaming in general.
Are you going to be reviewing microfiber cloths?
I might. It's from Whoosh, which is the company that, like, I just talked about them a couple weeks ago with my Retroid Pocket 6. I bought a bunch of cloths and I tried them all out, and I was like, this is the best one. And then they emailed me. And so, yeah, I might get a package from them and see what they got.
Awesome.
Very cool.
Well, let us know what you guys like. Right now, we all think that it's probably true, but I guess the panel is 50-50 on whether or not this is good for game optimization. So whatever you guys think, let us know in the comments section down below that like button. Is this good for game optimization, and do you believe the rumors?